So this is the Village of North Bennington Trustees meeting for August. It's the 11th of August, 2020, and we are convening via Zoom tonight. We have some guests tonight to discuss particular issues. One at 7:15 regarding a mobile phone communication project, and we have representatives from Tilson, I'll say, to present on that, and then we're going to have some guests from Bennington College at 8:15. So hopefully we can wrap that up within about an hour or so. But until 7:15, we are going to try to run through our regular orders of business first, just so that we don't have to stick around too late afterwards. So I know that it seems like there might be a couple people from the Tilson project here. Just excuse us for a few minutes while we take care of regular business, and we'll be with you shortly. Okay, so let's see. I just have to open my So did the trustees have the opportunity to review the minutes for the Zoom meeting from July 7th, 2020? Yes. Okay, there's yeses nodding. Is there any one, and just for the record, it looks like we have 4 trustees present this evening, which is a quorum. One of our trustees is not present yet, but if she does.
Tara's trying to get on. I just sent her the link.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Just wait.
There she is.
To connect to the audio.
Hi.
Hi.
Tara.
Hey. So has everyone had the opportunity to review the for July?
Yes.
Yes, I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, and is there any objection to the minutes being approved?
Ooh.
Okay, hearing no objection under the new rules, again, we don't require a second unless a second requested, so the minutes will be approved by unanimous consent. The review of the monthly warrant and approval of payment of the bills. So we had the attachments from Mary. Let's just take them in order. So the payroll warrant for the month of August is in the amount of $915.32. That's $9,915.32. And it does not appear that there's any.
There's nothing unusual in there, and it also shows that the summer intern, Joshua, will not be working past the 21st of this month.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the payroll warrant?
So moved.
And is there any objection to said warrant? Hearing no objection, that will be approved by unanimous consent. That is approved by unanimous consent. So and then the bills for the village for this month.
That total is $25,735.66.
Okay.
The two large items on there is the annual allocation to BCRC and a $5,700 payment for a new excavator. There is also the first the first monthly payment to West Oil for those deliveries this year. And that will be that amount for 10 months. And again, I reiterate how well that program went last year.
So I think you said on a new excavator, but that just means that what we're talking about is the special excavator that was rented, correct?
Correct. If this was a rental, it should not have gone under new equipment. But it went under new equipment. I assumed it was a piece of equipment.
Well, I would ask you to touch base with Norm on that one just to verify, because I think the amount of that expense looks like it's the rental for the excavator that was used for approximately 1 month.
Okay, if that is the case, it's the same amount. The bill is still due, but it will be reclassified and it will show up under culvert work.
Right.
So, Mary, that is a rental.
It is. Thank you, Lori.
Rental for 6 weeks. Yes.
Okay, thank you. It does not change the amount on the warrant.
Right. So the approval for the amount, regardless of what line item that goes under, is that, do I hear a motion for that? Motion is made by Matthew Patterson. Is there any objection or discussion on that? No objection or discussion. That motion carries unanimously. And then, Mary, would you like to just go into a treasurer's report at this time, seeing as we're on that already?
I can do that, and I can do that in very short order. Again, I sent you out some detailed notes. There's no need to read all of them. Pertinent is that I don't think that we're going to have to borrow in anticipation of taxes this year. It remains to be seen how quickly they come in. If they come in with any semblance of historical timeliness, we will not have trouble making the required education payments in November. Should there be something very unexpected come up and people simply do not pay their taxes, we will be needing to borrow money to pay the education taxes. I do not yet have the grand list, but I expect to get that in the next week to 10 days. I may be asking the trustees for a special meeting to look at and approve tax rates, and I will provide you a couple of different analysis what tax rates may be. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. We do have a $51,000 fund balance. That's a pertinent piece of information, and you can determine when we look at various options on tax rates, whether you want to specify projects again, like we did last year, or simply let it fall to the fund balance and reduce the overall tax burden. The other thing that you'll have to decide at that point in time is whether you want to do any adjustments to the tax rates, et cetera, which affect only the municipal, not the education taxes. Remember, we send out one tax bill. So there could be some confusion if we have one tax bill, part of it due one time and part of it due another time. Nevertheless, there are options that we can discuss at that point in time. At the moment, there are only 2 properties with $2,200 due from prior years. So it's not that people that had delinquent taxes were unable to pay them, I'm relieved to say, and thanks to the residents of our village for doing that.
And thank you to you, Mary, because you do a lot.
Thank you. The Evie charging station is still going, but it's at a snail's pace. I did finally, when I sent this letter to you, I still had not received a feedback from our state railroad liaison, I did get back with him. He punted it off to Green Mountain Power. I've contacted Green Mountain Power. They're jumping back in and looking at it. I will also be visiting or contacting Norm tomorrow following this very late-breaking email that I received, so we can finalize that location. And there'll be, a couple of decisions for the trustees on that.
Hey, Mary, can I just jump in for 1 second? Is that what there's a stake in that parking lot next to the storage shed at the railroad?
That has nothing to do with that project.
Oh.
I don't know what that would be.
Okay, whatever that is, maybe I'll touch base with Norm again. Somebody's going to run over that thing. It's only about a foot out of the ground.
Unless that had to do with the water line. Remember they were going to put in a fire hydrant?
All right, I'll check with Norm because I just happened to notice it yesterday.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
I changed it there. Go ahead.
And then the final thing I will say, mindful of time here, is when we discuss the USDA loan documents later on in the meeting, I know that's on the agenda, really need to make sure that I can get timely signatures from all of you trustees so that I can get those documents out. Time is of the essence there, and the closing is on the 20th. Any other questions? Feel free to ask.
Okay. Thank you. And as far as, are there any comments on highway before we move on to other matters? We're hopefully wrapping up the water project, so if people do have concerns about how things are put back together, they should let us know. And through our, the supervisor, we would put that stuff to the contractor to try and make sure that they do everything that they need to do to get it back in place. Yes.
I have a question. So sometime earlier this year during that project, I personally lost a brand new tire to that project up on Mechanic Street, and I'm wondering if there's any recourse with that and how I might go about submitting a claim for my $200 tire that was summarily destroyed by the lack of care, I would say, of the Mechanic Street project and the various gravel, cuts in the road and whatnot.
Yeah, I would say that our engineer should be the point of contact for that. So that would be either Brett Barrett, or you can go straight to Craig Jewett at Otter Creek Engineering. And if you just want to submit the request to me, then I can forward it to him. But if it's in writing, then I can just pass it on, and then we can see what they say.
Matthew,
Yes.
I've submitted two letters of concern, and I've submitted them directly to Brett because there's been more significant situations up here in my area, and he actually came to the house yesterday, and they want to take care of anything that is not okay. And one of my neighbors had a situation with a tire as well, and they spoke to him at the same time that I did. I called the neighbor over just because, Brett was at the house. So he seems to want to bring that to the engineer, to the contractors, and to make sure that everything's right. And he wants to make sure everyone's happy before they leave. And he knew that I wasn't, so they've been very aware and helpful. Brett has.
So I will submit something forthcoming to Lori. Maybe is that better?
You
John?
can do that, and I can submit it to Brett, or I can give you Brett's contact information.
I do. You know, I have the tire still.
Yeah.
So
Whatever you want.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, so other. How about? I hate to keep going on the sort of regular agenda, but I think the other item was. Well, let's. Okay, so why don't we, since it is 7:19 at this point, let's move to the presentation that we have scheduled for this time, and then we can circle back to any other citizen comments or other issues that are present tonight. So I will open this up to whoever would like to speak on the issue of the mobile communications project. And go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, so I'm Matthew Bowen. I work for Technology Management. I'm in the telecommunications advocacy group. I'm a staff attorney there. And with me tonight, I've got Melanie Dorn. She's our legal intern and future staff attorney. She'll be coming back on in the fall as a full-time attorney. I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I thought might aid in the discussion. I've not presented with Zoom on a PowerPoint yet, so please excuse any technical difficulties. Let's see as I share screen. There we go. Okay, there we go. And all right.
So if I could just briefly say, is anybody having difficulty seeing the presentation? I'm seeing this very clearly, and I'm just getting nods. Yes. Okay. Good. All right. Great. Thank you, Matt.
All right. So I think there's like a auto thing on, so I apologize about that. So real quick, I work for Tilson Technology Management, and we our motto is we're on a mission to build America's information infrastructure. We do a lot of things, mostly related to IT or telecommunications, information technology and telecommunications. But more specifically, one of the things that we do is we engineer, design, and build small cell or small wireless facilities. We've got about 23 offices nationwide, and we have about 550 employees in 36 states. We've been regularly recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in the region and in the United States, and we're very proud of that. We are military veteran heavy. At one point in time, our company boasted as much as 25% veterans. As we grew, that number, of course, shrunk, but I'm happy to say that I'm amongst one of those military veterans. And, you know, it was my military experience that helped me segue into this position after law school. And we do, like I mentioned, we have a lot of lines of businesses, whether it's government consulting or IT professional services, but our biggest line of business is in the telecommunications world, i.e. wireless carrier work. And one of our core competencies, you know, compared to a lot of the telecommunication companies across the country, they're kind of large companies. We're not compared to them. You know, 550 employees is small compared to those companies, but that allows us a lot of flexibility, a lot of creativity, and we're able to operate in a very expeditious manner and creative manner when necessary. Real quick, this is just a map of our presence. You know, our headquarters is in Portland, Maine. I think our second biggest office is in Salt Lake City, Utah. Our third biggest office is in Atlanta, and then we have people spread all out over the country, and a lot of places that aren't even marked on the map. As a IT and telecommunications company, we have a lot of employees that were working remotely even before the COVID-19 crisis started to begin. So ultimately, and I'll get more later into the site specifically, but what we are asking the Board of Trustees, and I know Tuck O'Brien did a presentation about a year and change ago to this board. We are asking to install another small wireless facility. The first one that the Board of Trustees approved was on Bank Street on private property, and happy to report that we were able to successfully negotiate the easement with the private property owner and go through all the processes to get the permits and the approval. Because it might be new board members or there might be members of the public that aren't familiar with that project, I do want to go over a little high level detail of what a small wireless facility is. So a small wireless facility, simplified, it's typically a 40-foot wood utility pole, although there is some variation, with a low power antenna attached to the top of it and some telecommunications equipment mounted to the side. And what distinguishes a small wireless facility from other wireless carrier equipment is that it's meant to be closer to the user. One of the questions, well, isn't this just a mini tower? Isn't this just a small cell tower? Well, it uses a lot of the same concepts that a cell tower might, in that there is an antenna and there is fiber optic cables that feed those antennas, but it really is distinguished from a tower in that small wireless facilities, to optimize their deployment, the FCC third report order said, hey, we need to place these in the public right of way alongside our other utilities to really expedite and facilitate their propagation across the country to really get that next level of wireless signal. And so one of the questions that often comes up is, well, why can't this be on private property? Why does this have to be in the public right of way? And there are some times in some instances that we are able to put it on private property, but one of the things that distinguishes the small wireless facilities from a large cell tower is that because they're a low power antenna, they are meant to have a smaller geographic footprint, but that smaller geographic footprint allows them to have a higher speed. So there's kind of three reasons we might place a small wireless facility. The first is 5G. 5G, by its design, is an effort to use a different frequency band to get higher speeds. 5G will have a smaller footprint because of that. It'll have a smaller area that it can serve, but it can have a higher speed. Now, this pole, and we'll ultimately get to it, is not going to be 5G. I'm just going to state that right now. But there are still times when a wireless carrier might want to place, a regular 4G LTE pole. And the two situations when that comes to mind is one where the coverage is you have signal, but it's not great. And in those instances, a carrier can place a small wireless facility to act kind of like a repeater. It can pick up some signal, it will work with the fiber optic backbone, and together it's going to take someone who might only have 1 or 2 bars, low speed, and it's going to make it better. It's going to propagate it stronger in that area. In some of the situations we see that if, there's a building or a hill, or it's just the way that spot is in relation to the cell towers in the area, it just is in a hole. Sometimes, the wireless carriers will place a small wireless facility to fill in that coverage gap. Now, the second reason they might place a 4G small wireless facility is when there's a high concentration of users that they're trying to improve their speed. So if you've ever been to a football game or a concert or something, and you look at your phone and you've got great signal strength, and then you try to go post a picture on Facebook or Instagram, and it seems like it takes forever to load. You know, it's because there's a lot of people all trying to access the same network equipment. You know, our network bandwidth operates the same way as, say, like a road. You know, we might have an interstate that's designed for you to go fast, but if everybody's getting on the interstate at the same time, you're still going to have a traffic jam. And that's true with network technology as well. So sometimes a wireless carrier will propose to place a small wireless facility as, think of it as kind of adding an extra lane to that area, so that when you have a concentration of users, you know, you can still keep that speed going at a reasonable level. And so I mentioned that these small wireless facilities are typically deployed on utility poles in the public right-of-way. And the next question I always get asked is, why can't this be placed on an existing pole? And my answer is, it can, asterisk. You know, and there's always the, you know, asterisk with the fine print. Wireless carriers love to go on existing infrastructure first. That is their preference. It is the cheapest, it is the fastest, it is the most desirable to the municipality and residents, to not be adding additional infrastructure to the right-of-way. However, you know, the asterisk is, not all of those poles are optimized to take on the equipment. Sometimes there's a transformer. Sometimes, you know, the communication space is full with lots of other attachments, you know. So there's going to be structural and technical reasons why every pole is not a good pole to attach to. And then the next question I often get a lot is, do small wireless facilities generate any noise? And that question really kind of stems from a lot of people's understanding of a large macro cell tower. You know, we know these cell towers, they'll have generators. A lot of them will have generators at the bottom. And so, you know, if they lose power, the generators kick in. Generators make a lot of noise. But the idea being is, you know, if a nor'easter comes through, you know, we can still have reasonable cellular signal when the power's out. Small wireless facilities are small. They are not designed to be the end all, the be all. They're meant to complement those big towers, not replace them. And as such, it's not reasonable to place any sort of generator, backup generator. And so while there might be some really quiet, you know, fans and cooling equipment, they're not going to generate the same noise that you would expect from a large cell tower. And then, you know, the last question comes up is, well, you're placing an antenna close to the ground, you know, compared to a cell tower. You know, you're putting at a height of 40 feet instead of, you know, 150 feet. Is that safe? And the answer is absolutely. One of the keys with these small wireless facilities is because they use a low power and input and a low power antenna. It also creates a safe output at the antenna for anyone on the ground level or nearby. They are absolutely designed to be perfectly safe to walk under, around, because they use a different power input and output to propagate that signal. You know, it's not the same antenna that you would see, you know, at the 150 feet, you know, towers that have to, you know, really have those RF warnings and those strong propagation to get down to the users at the ground. So real quick, there's really 4 parties involved in this whole process. And so like I mentioned, Tilson Technology Management is the company I work for. And we engineer, design, and acquire the legal entitlements for small wireless facilities. We're the general contractor assigned to this project. Then there's our affiliate, SQF LLC. SQF is a registered public utility. in the state of Vermont as well as all other states. And they're the ones who are actually going to own the infrastructure. Tilson will not own the pole, SQF will. And that's just because they're a registered public utility. They do filings, and they're an affiliate of ours, so we work hand in hand because affiliate just means that we share common ownership. In this case, then there's also U.S. Cellular. So U.S. Cellular is the client or the attacher that would want to attach to the pole. And then there's the public. U.S. Cellular is trying to fill a need. They are trying to better serve its customers, and they're really the fourth party to this conversation. So real quick, SQF is, we also identify as Tilson Infrastructure, and they are our infrastructure owning entity. They are a CLEC in all 50 states, and they allow us to expedite the deployment of small wireless facilities for our carrier clients, because we're able to both as Tilson engineer and design it, and as SQF, access the right of way under various states' laws. And here's some examples of some small wireless facilities. So the design really runs the gamut of what you can have. Now, right here, this is a 4G wood pole, and this would be what we are proposing. But you can see, there are where there might be already decorative poles in place in a particular area. We can engineer a decorative pole to match. Here on this picture, you can see there's this kind of these unique poles, and then here's the one that actually is a small wireless facility with the antenna. Same here with this light pole. This is a pretty standard light pole design, and here's the one with the antenna and the equipment mounted. So at this point, this is the actual node that we are proposing. And so before I get into the site specific, I do want to see if any of the trustees have any questions up to this point.
So go ahead and ask questions. These are free to ask any questions they have.
I guess I'm a little confused. I was under the understanding this was actually the project, and I may be way off, but I thought this was the project on the Sage Street Syndicate property, in the parking lot behind the laundromat, and that's what I was operating on.
So that
These are the people that came to Rick.
Yeah, this is the same. I guess you could call it contractor, but the same entity. Tilson is the same people that did that project, and I think they got essentially approval from us last year that it was essentially a no objection deal, basically, because they had suggested that it was on private property. That sort of brought it out of our sphere. Although I think looking back now, with I think if there was significant objection from the board to that site, being that it's in the historic district, that we could have raised objection to it, but I don't know if there is really any objection because of the siting is so great for that particular one, because it's set back, it's central to the village, but it's set back and it's not in the right of way, and it really just provides what both parties need, which is to mask any effect for the village, but also provide the service that people want as well. This site, I think we wanted to definitely have the presentation on, because this is totally different, because this is going to be very visible, and I think depending on which design we're looking at, it it's going to stand out a lot more than the one that the Sage City negotiated for.
Yeah, I apologize for being out of the loop, self-imposed, but so this looks to me like this is just below the Larry Powers property, now Gregario.
Yeah, it looks like it's on the line between those two properties.
I actually have a slide that will show the property lines. So I kind of wanted to open up the general questions, but I'd be happy to go through the individual site if anyone doesn't have any questions, kind of generically on what small wireless facilities are. I could.
Well, I have some other generic questions.
Sure.
You in the beginning you spoke to why it couldn't be on private property, and is this not on private property?
Correct. This one would be in the public right of way.
Oh, I see. So within 20 feet from the center line of the road or whatever. Is that?
Yeah. My neast three slides from now will show a site plan that will show it.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, great. So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me ask, I think I have two that are relevant to what we have so far. So one is, I don't believe that the representation that was made to us last year was for a 40-foot pole. I think that when we had talked about a cell phone, like a telephone pole topper, that this would be something that would be placed on top of a existing pole, which I understand what you're saying about that can't always happen with the state. I mean, I just looked at the pole that's in front of my house, and there's no way something would go on top; it would just break it. But as far as the height goes, I don't think there's any poles around here that are more than like 30 feet tall. And the representation that I saw was that the top of it would only extend it by like maximum of 7 feet or less maybe. And I don't even know if they're 30, but anyways, and I think in your presentation there was, actually, I think we're still on the, can you go back one to look at the different designs?
yes.
We had been, the materials that Tuck had presented to us were for a design that looked similar to the one all the way to my left as I'm looking at the screen.
This one?
Yes. So that it would be, kind of like a standard telephone pole, and then at the top wouldn't really increase the width very much. It would just be, sort of it would look like an extra tall pole essentially, and maybe a little bit of width at the top, but not too much. The wooden pole application doesn't really seem that obtrusive to me either, personally.
Sure.
Because it doesn't widen the top that much, but the other two examples, I would definitely not want to. I mean, aesthetically, it looks like a huge garbage can on top of a telephone pole, and it's just not something. And I also, that leads to my second question, which is, are you in control of what the client would put up there, or is it limited or specific what the cellular provider or U.S. Cellular or whatever puts there, or can they add on something that makes it quite a bit wider or bigger?
Yeah, so I'm going to reference first the Sage City Syndicate location. I do believe with 99% confidence that would be a new pole place, but you are right in that its location back behind the gas station does limit that view. I do not know the height of that one off the top of my head, but I do want to make one clarification. When I say a 40-foot utility pole, that includes the depth that would be buried. So the standard depth that you bury a pole is 10% of the height plus 2 feet. So if we were installing a 40-foot utility pole, 6 feet of that would be buried. And so I don't want to necessarily say 40-foot utility pole and plus the antenna and, get everyone thinking that this could be, almost 50, feet by the time it's all said and done. For this specific site, I do have a slide that will show its dimensions, and I can answer the question on the exact height here. So I would be happy to look up and get back to you on the height that for the Sage City Syndicate. I do believe that one was a 40-foot utility pole, which means 34 feet would be above grade, and I believe the antenna is 3 feet. So from the top of the antenna to the ground would be 37 feet 6 inches. I would have to verify that. I'm not 100% confident on the one that was previously discussed. But I do understand that, you guys do have a very historic village, a lot of beautiful properties in the area, and that you would want to protect and preserve the aesthetics to that extent. So to answer your second question, we absolutely do have a lot of influence. I won't say control, but we have a lot of influence with our clients, our carrier clients on, helping design and pick the design that would be most optimal for the area. We try to match the local aesthetics to the best of the ability. Where there are wood poles in place, we typically go with the wood pole route. Where there are no poles in place, or maybe a mixture, we try to work with the city before even proposing something to figure out what that specific aesthetic requirement might be. So, our proposal is a proposal, and if there are aesthetic concerns, I cannot commit to anything as far as a design deviation, other than that I can take that feedback back to the carrier client and the project manager.
Okay. Actually, if I could share my screen real quick.
Sure. Stop share. There we go.
Get back to Zoom here. There we go. Okay. I don't know. This may be one of your next slides, but this was from talk last year about, and looking at that, it does actually say 39 feet. So that, I guess I can't claim that it was represented differently if that's what it says on the. But you can see that the pole width basically is just straight up, so that at the top it doesn't get wider and bigger. Is that because the top of the pole is something that the client is going to attach to, or is that going to be the finished look?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I'll answer what I think you're asking. So the antenna will attach to the top of the pole, and they are about or equally wide. You have another slide that will give you a top-down view, and I believe they are equal diameter. We actually do have a slightly different design that I think would be more aesthetically pleasing for this one.
Let me stop and you go ahead with your presentation. Sorry about that.
And I did, while you were pulling up that, I did pull up mine as well, and it looks like the final design actually was at 37 feet 1 inch for the Sage City Syndicate location. But yeah, I'll reshare and let me get into. Okay, so this is just the overview of the location. I'll have some more detailed slides to follow, but you get the general idea of where in your village it's going to be. I went ahead and I included every page in our construction drawings. I just wanted to be, upfront about all the pages included. Obviously, none of us can read this fine print. These are usually printed on 11 by 17 paper, so but we do have a page that has like the general notes.
You put that to the full screen, and we're getting the presenter screen as well as you. You might.
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. I'm sorry.
That's right.
There we go.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
There we go. So this is our third page. This is going to be the site plan. The next page I actually zoomed in on this, but this will show you where the new pole is. Here's an existing pole, but it's likely full of equipment, and so we are proposing. There's kind of like a hill here and some vegetation, and it's just down the hill from that little house. I will go ahead and go to the next page just so we can see that zoomed in. So our proposal is about 8 feet 6 inches from the edge of pavement, and then there's the road there. And so here's that page that we were discussing. So in terms of the top, they've added this kind of flush concealer to kind of conceal where the attachment actually happens. It gives it a more flush look. Now, I will note that this proposal is using a different radio cabinet than the Sage City Syndicate one. So it is a little bit bigger cabinet, but that unfortunately has to do with the availability of fiber optic cable in the area, as well as, so unfortunately this Ericsson cabinet is a little bit bigger and clunkier on the pole, but at the top of the pole, it is a little bit more of a sleek design. And then this right here, this is the aerial view. So if you were a bird or you took and flew your drone above this, this is what you would see looking straight down. So it's a proposed 45-foot class 2 pole. So with the 10% buried plus 2 feet, that's going to bring the final height to 43.7. It'll be 40 feet to the antenna and about 3 feet 7 inches with the antenna attached. These next few slides are a little more technical nuanced. There's not going to be a lot of value, but like I said, I wanted to provide every slide as shown. Here's the dimensions on the Charles cabinet. And then just some reference sheets. And then here's what I think you guys are ultimately wanting to see and discuss is where in relation to property lines is this. And so as you can see, it's not on the property line. It's kind of in the middle, but like I said, it's down from that hill. And these are the pictures that were taken in the field. So the cone is where the proposed site is. And so here on both of these, you can kind of see that hill, slight hill with the vegetation. I believe this would be looking towards the cemetery. This is looking, towards the house would be back. I think it's technically over here. And, looking the other direction towards the village center. Here's a more up close picture that shows the measurements and call outs. And so I'd be happy to go back to any slide and to elaborate or answer any further questions that additional information might have generated.
I've got a question.
Yes.
If you go back a slide or two, there's a tree there that the trees next to that cone, how tall are they? Like how tall in relation to that tree would the 40-foot pole be?
I don't know the measurement on those trees, but I can almost assure you that it would be, those trees are taller than 40 feet.
Okay, and the utility pole across the street, could you guess that height?
At grade, that's probably a 40-foot utility pole, so it's probably 30 feet, 34 feet, right where my pointer is.
Okay.
That would be my best guess. I can tell you the reason we are proposing a 45-foot pole in this situation as opposed to a 40-foot pole, which is a little more standard, has to do with the trying to get it a little bit higher into the ground because of the vegetation and trying to get a more optimal signal coverage and with the hill and the grade and the trees. If we were able to put it on this side, which we're not, we might be able to do a smaller pole because it's a little less vegetated.
Okay, I was just curious what it would look like in relation to other stuff on that piece of land. Thank you.
Yes. What other questions can I answer for you guys?
I have a few. Matthew, thanks for the presentation. So, first of all, why is this called the Bennington College OSC?
Yeah, so our site names, they kind of pick them by what they're near. So if we were deploying a CRAN, that would be usually, as an example, we said Bennington CRAN. That means we're doing a deployment of several sites all at once. You might have one on First Street, one on Second Street, so on and so forth. When they start being individual sites, they come up with a naming scheme of what it's near or what it's by. I believe Bennington College is directly to the south from this. So it's just the name of the relation that the carrier client picked. Originally, the discussion was with Bennington College. We were trying to place something on their property. We were not able to. And so as we moved the site off of the Bennington College into the public right away, it kept the same name. I mean, unfortunately, the naming conventions aren't always the best. Sometimes I get a site that's named, I live in Brunswick, Maine, so they might name the site Brunswick, Maine, but it's right across this boundary and it's actually in Topsom. So then I go to the town of Topsom and I'm like, hey, I want to put this pole in, and they're like, why is it named Brunswick? It's like, because that's unfortunately what it's named.
I get it. So what does OSC stand for?
I apologize that I don't know the answer to that. That's just the 3-letter designation that usually comes with just a standalone site when we're proposing one and not a whole group of them. If we were proposing a group, it would be called a CRAN.
Another question is about the business model, and you're doing this for U.S. Cellular. I'm not aware that there's a whole lot of U.S. Cellular customers in this area. There used to be, but I think so. I'm wondering, are you looking for, other carriers to make use of the pole, or do you get something from other carriers getting better access from the pole? What makes this viable for y'all?
So that's a great question. So we are able to subject to any jurisdictional requirements, allow additional carriers to co-locate on poles, but it gets into the technical nuances of making sure there's not a physical or technical conflict between their equipment. But there are instances where we'll have multiple carriers on a single pole. I do think the max is 2. I've only done that so far in New Jersey, in a very, very populated part of New Jersey. I think it was Jersey City. So as far as U.S. Cellular, U.S. Cellular tries to market itself towards the more rural parts of America that tend to get left behind in some instances with the other carrier clients. We at Tilson, we work with all of them, and as our affiliate is SQF is a CLEC, or a telecommunications company, registered public utility. We are neutral. We are agnostic. We work with and allow all the wireless carriers to attach to us, as well as any other public utilities that desire to do so. As far as the viability of why U.S. Cellular's picked the site, I'm not privy to their exact business decisions, other than they feel they have a need and they wouldn't be trying to fill this need. It is far less expensive to do a small wireless facility than, say, a new tower, but it just still does cost capital. And so, a rational entity wouldn't, throw bad money or good money at a bad spot if they didn't feel like there's a need. And so that, I'm sure they feel whatever their RF data sheets are saying, there is a need in this area that they want to fill.
Thank you for that. And which leads me to the next question. It might lead to the idea that that what they're doing is positioning themselves for 5G capability by before that comes along, selling this kind of technology to communities all over the country, and get their tower up, and then have access. And it seems to me that 5G is the game that everybody's wanting to win. So, should we approve this kind of proposal? Does the contract speak to anything about future changes to the tower's capacity?
Generally speaking, anytime there is a change in equipment that is substantial, we would have to seek new authorization. So I think changing from a 4G to a 5G would be a substantial modification that would require new approval.
Is that your legal opinion, or maybe your legal the gal is with you there? Maybe she would have. I would just be curious if that is a valid interpretation of the contract that you've put forth, because I'm genuinely curious whether or not that would be something that would definitely be.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what you're referencing by a contract, but because we haven't proposed a contract now. If the village is requesting a right-of-way use agreement or a franchise agreement as a bilateral contract,
yep,
that would be something we could discuss. They are a little bit intensive to present, negotiate, and
sure.
And I think I would have to get approval for doing so with such a small municipality. Say that it's not unheard of. It is possible. But if you were wanting a bilateral right-of-way use agreement or a franchise agreement, that is something that we could consider. But in reference to if we didn't have such an agreement, it is my legal opinion that any change to 5G equipment, it would be a substantial modification, which would require new approval under, the FCC's order and guidance, and subject to any jurisdictional requirements. I've permitted all over the country, mostly the Midwest, but I've done some stuff in New Jersey, South Carolina, North Carolina, actually in Maine as well. And every entity that I've seen that actually has some sort of ordinance in place would require a new approval for any change of equipment that is that substantial. So it's pretty standard of practice, and it wouldn't be challenged in court or anything. It would fall within the realm of under the guidelines of the Telecommunications Acts and all the FCC orders.
Of course, that's subject to any changes at the federal level regarding FCC jurisdiction over local community choice and all that. But
Correct.
no, I do appreciate your candor there. So I think that's all I have. Anybody else?
Have the property owners been approached on this?
They have not be willing to do a notification to them and reach out to them if that's something that you guys would require prior to a final approval. But we're interested in trying to move on to private property in this location.
Well, I just think, if
Sure.
it's not technically on private property, but putting it essentially on the edge of somebody's lot, that is, I would think they're going to have something to say about that. And I know that the property directly across the street was in pretty stark opposition to a cell phone tower proposal that was proposed for our town garage, which was larger, but it didn't seem like she was supporting that in general, I would say. And so the other question I had was, so you were, and I think it was answered by Mr. Patterson, or your discussion with Mr. Patterson was that if there were provisions in terms of a contract, that would be only if a contract existed or was negotiated with between any parties, including the village. Okay.
Yeah, is that something that you guys would be interested in? I will say with a high degree of confidence that because of the size of your municipality, we cannot agree to pay your attorney's fees for negotiating a right-of-way use agreement. But I would not, I can say with a high degree of confidence that I would get the approval to seek one if that would help create the assurances that you think, might be proper in this situation.
Well, to me, I don't want to make this into something it's not, because I think
Sure.
that for me, the fact that we just approved a large installation for AT&T service on Bennington College, that I'm really not in favor of installing more mobile communications sites especially that are in really obvious areas, until I know what the service is going to be like with that new tower in place. If that basically solves our issues, then I think that the village residents complaints about that are totally different than they are presently. And so I don't want to, say, oh, well, people have complaints about service coverage and then install 4 different towers when one would have been all that we needed. So, and I recognize that these are different entities and different companies, but I do also know that through the state regulatory agency that co-location is preferred, and if you're not talking about different technology, that site, I mean, U.S. Cellular could put their antenna on the AT&T site if they wanted to.
Yes, they could. And yes, it is not really different technology in terms of the speed. What substantially and dramatically different is the intent of the coverage. And so these small wireless facilities are much cheaper options, even compared to a co-location on a tower, to cover a geographic area where there might be a hole or a congestion in coverage. Now, I suspect that in this particular spot, they're seeking to cover a hole rather than congestion because it is kind of a rural residential road. Co-location on a tower is, could be hundreds of dollars a month for co-locating, whereas, without revealing confidential information, our co-location on a utility pole is not. And because it is a public utility, SQF is a registered public utility, we are regulated and on the amount that we can agree to charge U.S. Cellular. And it's a substantial difference. So in terms of, whether or not this equipment could be co-located, when we're talking about a technical feasibility, yes. When we're talking about the business feasibility, no. Co-located on that AT&T tower that you guys just approved. And so this is really covering a more isolated need. I'd be happy to provide additional propagation map or something to show what the expected output would be. But I don't think, and USL and AT&T and all of those big carriers, they co-locate on towers that they all own throughout the country. They're competitors for customers, but they absolutely cooperate on the infrastructure side of things. And it's not that USL would be opposed or AT&T would not want USL. It's just that in this situation, the business viability doesn't make sense for the coverage need that USL is trying to provide in this limited geographic area. But I do understand and I do appreciate the concern of, when will it stop? If we approve this, how much is reasonable? That being said, under the FCC third report and order and under the Vermont state law regarding the CLEC ability to place poles in the public right-of-way, these small wireless facilities are designed to be placed in the public right-of-way, and under those orders, it is the intent to do so.
Chairman Lamson, have you received any calls from U.S. Cellular customers that are seeking this kind of coverage?
I don't know of any U.S. Cellular customers, to be honest with you.
I don't either. So we've got a lot of other and kind of important business tonight, and I'm thinking, I don't know what the end game of this was, but I'm ready to move on if we got to make a decision publicly or do that later. But I know there's people waiting to.
I think the motion that would be remaining at this point would be whether to whether to support the proposal or whether to or not. I mean, I don't think we're in a position to say that you can't proceed, because it's not. I don't know as you're really asking permission as much as you're asking for our support in what you're doing. But I think that we can formally. I think if you're asking for our support of the project, I think we can make a motion either granting the support or not. So, if and I think it is fair for a trustee to request there to be, a limitation on the amount of information that we've received enough information to make a fair decision. So, is there an other member? Other members of the board that would like to be heard or speak to the issue of essentially cutting off debate at this point? It doesn't look like there is.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before you call the
Hearing none, I would like. Go ahead, Matthew.
I will say, we are seeking approval. If it's, because ultimately we would ask for a, no zoning or BP or permit letter if you guys don't have formal zoning or building permits. I understand there might be a digging permit required. So ultimately, I need to have a decision of approval or deny within your authority. And so I know you talked about, am I looking for your support? I am actually looking for your approval if, that is your prerogative. Now, if there's additional information you would like me to provide contingent upon that approval, I understand. And, you can vote however you want to in that regard. But I am ultimately seeking approval and not just general support. I will not be as bold to say as I'm not telling you, I am actually asking you guys for approval, just to kind of counter, I believe, we do have rights under the law, but those rights stop at our needing and seeking the jurisdiction's actual approval. If that clarifies anything.
Yeah, but I think that the trustees would need to seek. I mean, I think we can say whether we approve or disapprove the project in its as it's proposed, but I think what you're saying is, what do we have jurisdiction to approve or disapprove of? And I think we would need to have our legal counsel weigh in on exactly what we can approve or disapprove, because I don't know if you go directly to the trustees on a digging permit. I think that, there might be levels of appeal on that. And, you're essentially going to the top, which is good because you know what the result is at the end of the game. But I don't want to exceed our authority at this meeting. So I guess I would entertain a motion to approve or disapprove of the project as proposed tonight, without saying that it's specifically denying a digging permit or a particular zoning ordinance.
John, just tell me how I can do that. I certainly would make a motion to not approve of the proposal. I wish we could go further as far as where the next step is regarding digging and things you're bringing up. But all I'm saying is I don't see any reason to approve or support the proposal from US or from Tilson.
So there's been a motion not to. Would you add at this time, Matthew? Or, I mean, obviously things can change in the future depending on.
I guess they could. All kinds of things change, but I'm making a motion to,
based on the information we have.
based on the information, not to support the proposal from Tilson regarding a micro cell tower or whatever they call it on Mechanic Street.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second by Mr. Boudreau, and all those. Is there further discussion on that motion by trustees, or is there any objection to the motion itself? Okay. Hearing none, we'll vote on that. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aaron, which way did you?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. So unfortunately, it sounds like at this time, with the information that we have, we're not going to support that proposed project. Although, you know, we certainly, I mean, I really appreciate the way that this was handled and the way that you came to the meeting and made the professional proposal that you did, and we thank you for that. I think that, you know, circumstances just presented themselves in a way that this AT&T tower is essentially a done deal at this point, and it's very difficult to make decisions not knowing how that will change the mobile communications landscape in North Bennington going forward. You know, obviously, you're welcome to submit a response to that. You know, a written response would be great if you choose to, but you know, you're not required to or anything like that. But I want to just make sure I, you know, do really appreciate your time here tonight.
I appreciate your guys' time, and I, you know, let you get on to other business. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So the next order of business that we have for 8:15 was the Bennington College had a proposal for us. I'm supposed to get a notification when people are trying to sign in, so I hope nobody's having any
I
issues.
think they are. Hey, John, I think they are having a hard time getting in.
Okay.
Hey, John, so in the meantime, Tim Newbold is here.
Should we
Talk about-
accept him?
Right. That's what I wanted to do, was to just take Mr. Newbold.
It won't take long.
I can tell them. Oceana, who's going to be presenting, just asked me about getting in, and I can tell her, you know, 5 minutes or so.
Well, could you maybe, if you can, send
Then resend the link.
that you used to get in? I don't know if that's different.
Okay, so you did not let them in. You just, no one tried to get in, is what you're saying.
I didn't have any
Okay.
notification.
I'll send her the link.
Okay, thanks. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Newbold.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Quite the debate on the cell towers. Always an interesting one, I'm sure. So I wanted to just talk to you briefly about two possible sites within the village and what you guys would even entertain around that. And one of the sites that, so with the way schools are trying to navigate the whole COVID-19 challenge, the big challenge is around social distancing and then also cohorting. And our school has limited size, and so for us, if we spread out a little bit, it provides more social distancing, which is one of the things we're really trying to do to keep everybody as safe as possible. So two sites that are sort of under your jurisdiction, or at least your tacit jurisdiction, and I'd love sort of you guys to think about, and then we can go to the next steps. The two sites that we're thinking about that might possibly work for the school would be the depot. So there's space down there to potentially hold a class or part of a class to spread our numbers out a little bit. and then the other one was the firehouse. So those two spaces could potentially allow us a little more breathing room and allow us to spread out our students a little bit more. What's nice about both of those spaces, because we've looked at some other spaces that have posed some challenges. In our model right now, we anticipate families that are going to want and need to do remote learning at the start of the year and may even continue through that for most of the year. And so we want to be able to service them, but also service the students that are in person. So we need to have good internet access at all the locations. So one of the locations we've been looking at and trying to navigate is Lake Perrin. And Lake Perrin is a great location, but it really may not provide us the internet access, and it may take a few months for that to even be viable for us, so that we could not only have the students who are at that location have some internet access, but the idea would be for us to be able to broadcast live the teachers that are presenting whatever information they are to the students at home. So the two locations within the village that could provide us something like that, and also easy access from the school as far as proximity for other teachers to get over there and things like that. The depot and the train station are two locations that could be very advantageous for us. So I would love for you guys to think about that. And I don't know that you need to approve it right now, but I would love for you to just allow us to investigate it more as a viable option. And so now I just want to open it to questions.
So the one thing that only occurred to me now is that typically the available room in the depot is the opposite side, which doesn't have a bathroom. So I think there's a bathroom upstairs, and then there's a bathroom in the regular meeting side. So we may want to think about maybe if the only occasional use that the building's getting as far as our meetings and the water board meetings, and we may just continue to do Zoom anyway, maybe we could just schedule our meetings for the other side and allow you the use of the side with the bathroom. But I know that with the firehouse proposal, I did speak to the chief about that, and he is open to the idea. The issues that he raised, and they would be the same ones for the depot as well, is just to make sure that you are in charge of the cleaning to the specifications of the state, and that doesn't in any way sort of fall back on the village to do cleaning in between or after you finished with the use.
No, so absolutely, I'd be happy to answer that question. So what we would do is we would have our cleaning staff be responsible for that on an every evening basis that our students were there. And right now we're hoping to be able to open 4 days a week during the school week. So we're going to have one drop day, which looks to be Wednesdays, but we would have the cleaning staff in there on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday to make sure the space was available for anybody after use. And the final stage of any cleaning, we have it's a sprayer that's a disinfectant sprayer, a hydrostatic sprayer that would be a complete surface spray that you go through the space as a final walkthrough. And what that does is it then it charges the particles, so it wraps around everything, so it gets underneath the chairs and stuff like that. And that would be sort of our last disinfectant space piece as far as us leaving that space in the best condition it can be for anybody else coming in. So yes, we would absolutely take responsibility for that.
Mary, did you have a question?
No, just a comment. I just wanted to make note of the fact that the depot is used, that one office is used for tax collection purposes. That would not be a problem at all to switch to the other side. So just want to support that notion if we could use that room.
If I'm correct, and you know the spaces better than I, both sides are about the same size, and there's sort of that hallway between, but the one side accesses the bathrooms, the other does not. I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yes. And I rarely have had anyone come in to pay taxes requesting use of a bathroom.
But the bathroom, so the side that does not have the bathroom, it is connected to the upstairs, which does have a bathroom.
Yes.
So really, both sides have a bathroom. Just one of the bathrooms is upstairs.
Okay.
So
Meaning that it's not handicap access, right?
exactly,
And,
the second side, right?
and so if it turned out they needed the side they're proposing, I think we could allow access to the other side, the other bathroom.
Mhm.
But my other concern is we do have an agreement, such that it is with VAE for use of the building, and I don't know where they stand with that right now.
I'll send you an email right after the meeting.
Yeah, and we'd have to discuss that with them for the.
Right.
They use the opposite side to where we meet.
That's correct. Yeah.
So we could certainly kind of
Right, we
make
could
both sides if we had to.
And VAE and the village school work hand in hand on many projects. I'm sure we could certainly
Right.
connect on that as well as need arose.
Ultimately, Tim, I'm all for anything we can do as a village to help your school do what you're envisioning. Again, you don't have any handicap access at the fire station. I don't know how you deal with that, but
We'd have to pick a particular class
right.
that did not need any of had any of those access issues.
Right.
So I completely understand that piece. So it limits who we could potentially have in both of those spaces, but we have some flexibility within that.
And my only other question would be whether the village feels the need to assess any sort of rent on these properties, or do we feel like we're, it's all trying to make it work for everybody?
So I'd be more than willing to think fully through that with you, whether it was an additional from the village or firehouse or heating or anything like that, or utilities.
Right.
I'd certainly be willing to navigate that with you. And if we couldn't come up with a firm number, it's something we could, because in September and October, it might not be that much. But if this extends into January and February, the numbers may start to go up to be able to maintain those spaces. So we can certainly have those as an ongoing negotiation.
My opinion on that is kind of the same as we treat the park and rec. I think our residents pay enough for the privilege of living here that we should open up the spaces we have that we don't generate money from anyway, if we can help the community. So unless we were really burdened by either really high electric costs or heating costs, I wouldn't feel the need to look for any additional funds for that.
I'm with Mark.
My opinion.
Sure.
Ara, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make Tim aware that if you needed more space, the two large spaces that we have at Taraden could potentially work. If you wanted to see what was available, we could talk about a similar deal.
I would very much like to see those spaces. That would be great, Tara. Thank you.
Okay, excellent.
So
We'll touch base somewhere.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I don't think this requires any formal motion at this stage, just that you've got the board's, you've got the sense of where the board is at on this issue, and that we would proceed with a more formal stage.
Okay. My one follow-up question would be, if we go forward, we're looking at a potential opening day of September 8th.
Yeah.
Would we need to, I don't know when the next time you meet is. You may not have a formal meeting before that, but would I need to make a proposal to you before that to get actual approval?
I don't think so, because what we've done in the past is use of the buildings is something that's with as long as it's not a use that's outside of what they're designed to do, which this wouldn't be. We can approve that as it goes. So we've approved other uses of those buildings without formal approval or motion of the board. So I think that that's fine. But as far as a cost sharing thing, or a more, I think we would want an agreement on the cleaning issue and stuff like that. So we would want to address that at some point, but it doesn't have to be the first day.
Great.
So
Thank you so much for your time. I
It was
appreciate
just a scheduling issue with Lori.
it. Okay, very good. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right.
Thank you. We'll need it, I think. Have a good night. Take care, everybody.
So we are very honored to have special guests tonight from our other Institute of Education in town. Bennington College is here to make a presentation on their plans for opening school in the fall. And I think Oceana maybe was gonna introduce us to our guests, but I'll just hand it over to whoever wants to take over.
I'll
Introduce Laura, yeah.
I'll start. This is Laura Walker, and I am just honored and delighted to be the 11th president of Bennington College, a position I have held for 1 week and 2 days. And so I'm delighted to be here in my second week, and I'm a very proud resident of North Bennington up at the Brick House. And thank you so much for having me and several of my colleagues here tonight. One thing that has become very clear to me, even in my week and 2 days, is how deeply intertwined and mutually dependent Bennington College is with North Bennington and Bennington. And we are deeply committed to extending, I think, what is a really good and positive relationship between the college and the community, and to deepening that relationship and ensuring that the college thrives and we have a great partnership with you. And so I'm here today with some of the extraordinary staff members at the college who have been working tirelessly over the last couple of months to develop a plan for the fall that will really, with a goal to help ensure the health and safety of the students, but also of the community. And the safety of the students and the surrounding community is a central goal of this. We've worked with SBMC. We've put together lots of great minds at the college, and we want today to share our plan with you, to get any thoughts you have, to talk about what ifs, what if there are infections on the campus or in the community or whatever, and because this really is a partnership, and we want to obviously do everything that we can to keep everyone healthy. So Oceana is going to give an overall summary of our plan. She is the acting dean of the college, and also she has the great privilege, I hope privilege, to be the head of the COVID task force for all of us, and she's doing a great job. Also, I think with us is Natalie Basil, who is the dean of students, Brian Murphy, who's the vice president for finance and administration, and Dr. Randy Anselmo, who is the director of health services. So I'm going to hand it over to Oceana.
Thank you, President Walker, and just very honored to meet you and happy to meet you, and welcome to North Bennington.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us and to review the plan. I'm just going to share can I share my screen, John? Thank you. Can everyone see that okay? Thanks. I need to move the little bar of people so I can actually use the advance button too. Well, we're really so happy to be here and share with you what we've been working on in terms of planning and thinking about our fall presentation. So just a really brief overview. Our reopening plan was truly designed with the health and safety of our students, staff, faculty, and the surrounding community as our central goal. And specifically, we're, within adherence of the state of Vermont's safe and healthy return to campus, the mandatory guidance for colleges and universities, as well as our own commitment of shared responsibility, which was based on this mandatory guidance and in some cases exceeds what they're asking for. So for testing and tracking, we will be testing every student, faculty, and staff on campus. The staff and faculty testing is beginning tomorrow. Students will be tested upon arrival to campus and then in 7 days. We're going to have asymptomatic rolling testing. This is called surveillance testing, but we're trying to find better words for that because it makes our students nervous. So throughout the term, we'll be testing people to make sure we're picking up asymptomatic cases. We'll have the daily temp screen through an app called Co-Verify, and we're really committed to providing transparent reporting on our website of the status of cases on campus. So students will begin to arrive. Those who need to quarantine on campus, as defined by the Vermont guidance, will start arriving in staggered schedule beginning on the 19th. Our students will quarantine in individual houses, the house communities, and then we will welcome on August 31st the students who were allowed to quarantine at home based on the Vermont guidance. And we're anticipating right now we'll have about 520 students on campus. Our ongoing prevention and containment, similar to many systems I'm sure you guys are setting up in other places, the symptom check and the fever, all staff, faculty, and students will be required to isolate and test. Students who test positive will be isolating on campus in campus facilities until they're cleared by health officials. Our staff and faculty will isolate at home. We will be doing the contact tracing very much in coordination with the Vermont Department of Health. They take the lead on that, but they'll be working closely with our Director of Student Health Promotion, Ali Tartaglia. The Vermont Health Department has been an excellent partner throughout. Dr. Anselmo's been meeting with them weekly, and we just had a really great group call with them on Monday. So it's been very helpful. As I mentioned before, all the members of the community are going to sign a commitment of shared responsibility, and this includes adhering to the Vermont State Travel Guidelines. We will be providing some limited student shuttle service into the community. One of the really hard decisions we had to make in the spring was to close the campus for recreational use. We heard from a lot of local members of the community that they were sad about that, and we agreed. We were really happy this summer to reopen that. The buildings, campus buildings, are still closed to the public, but we're really very happy to welcome back walkers and bikers and people jogging and people with dogs. So that started this summer and it's been going really well. And we do just ask for the standard guidelines you're seeing everywhere, that people observe physical distance, wear a mask, and don't come to campus if they have symptoms. So our plan is really based on threshold measures, and we've made it as adaptable as possible. We have structured the curriculum in a way that it can easily switch to remote. And what we're going to do throughout the term is really track these measures. And they include things like the number of cases on campus in the local community, the testing availability, and critical, as we're hearing now in the news, the result time, staffing, the percentage of quarantine spaces, how everyone's doing complying with our commitment of shared responsibility. SVMC has been an absolutely incredible partner. They've been so helpful, and we've reviewed this plan with them and have been in close dialogue throughout since the spring. So certainly we're tracking using their alert system, because we have very real sensitivities about unduly impacting the local health care.
So based on those thresholds that we're monitoring, we're really thinking through a variety of ways that we can, it's not simply fully open or fully closed. We're thinking about things like, based on the measures, do we need to restrict campus spaces? Do we need to limit travel and keep the students on campus? Do we need to switch to remote instruction for a short period of time? Do we need to quarantine a house? These will be the types of decision points we'll be making as we track what is happening on campus and in the local community. Never to let a good disaster go to waste. We also wanted to be sort of creative and generative in this moment. And one of the interesting things that has happened is it's really accelerated plans that we had ongoing and interest in really expanding the college's offerings out to learners locally and regionally and really around the world. And our faculty have now gotten quite a crash course in remote instruction and are really doing creative and fascinating things. So we're really excited to launch Bennington Plus, which is a suite of courses available. They're all offered remotely right now, and Vermont high school juniors and seniors may be eligible for dual enrollment reimbursement. So we're excited, to have some positive, creative things come out of this in the midst of everything. So just to quickly summarize, we have a really adaptable plan to provide flexibility and really respond in the moment to the needs. The very unpredictable nature we know is our existence now. We've really put health and safety at the heart of this plan. We live in this community, and the impact of the college plans is a hugely important consideration. We're with you, shopping in the same places, having children in schools, and caring for people, and we know it's not in isolation. So we truly want to make sure that we're being clear and transparent in our communication, and that we're being good community partners. And we're really grateful for your time here tonight to present and talk this through. So we'd love, I'll stop sharing the screen and just open it up to your questions.
So a question for me is, so you talked about how the Bennington College community really is the North Bennington community, and I think that I guess you addressed several concerns I had questions about, but you've just basically answered the questions as far as how isolation works on campus and what is happening with students that are coming from these what we call hot spots at this point. But the question I had is, so can you talk a little bit about what a classroom looks like in the fall, just because the students may be in a sort of defined environment on campus, but all of the staff and faculty, as we know, are in and out of our lives and community, and our kids have play dates and all that stuff. So I think I know the answer, but if you could just run down, what the classroom looks like, that would be great.
Sure. And I don't want to call on Erin because I know she's here in a different role, but she's been so involved in the buildings and grounds and the redesign of the classroom. So I will say, we've gone through and done occupancy on all the classrooms. They're greatly changed. We're teaching in spaces that we don't typically teach in to allow for the proper amount of distancing. Some faculty will be teaching remotely. Some will be on campus. Some will have a hybrid. They've been really creative in thinking through how, can you have a set of students come on the Tuesday and then work on the assignment, and have the other half of the class come on a Thursday. So that adherence to making sure we have the distancing in place and the masks. We're going to have masks in the classroom. We have some post-bac students, pre-med students with us now, and they are currently doing it, and it looks strange, to be honest. They're 6 feet apart, and these desks, everyone's wearing a mask. The instructor is masked. So is really challenging. Aaron, do you have anything else to add about we do have some cleaning protocols for each of the classrooms. I think I heard when I came on briefly, I heard Tim talking about the Clorox 360 vaporizer. We were all excited about things that we never thought we'd be excited about, but are going to keep us safe. So I'll let Aaron, if you have anything to add.
I mean, I think there are cleaning kits around so that folks can clean down classrooms if needed, or after each class. Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate, the occupancies are very different now than they used to be, and as Oceana said, places that were not used as classrooms before will be. But I don't know if I can think of anything else to add beyond that.
I wanted to mention that a lot of the offices, the work is going on still remotely. So the density, even on the staff side in the staff offices, is greatly reduced. So in all offices, there's still social distancing going on. And many offices may have one or two people in the whole suite, in the entire suite. And that's done intentionally to make sure that we keep the density on campus low to minimize the risk.
A quick comment too, John. The way that the classrooms and the teaching spaces have been designed, we can think about it as though, okay, if a student were to test positive or have COVID, and then we go back and do immediate contact tracing, which is our protocol in concert with the Department of Health. The way that teachers, the way that staff are situated in relation to students is that they would not really be considered close contacts at all in that sense. So if that means anything just in terms of the movement of faculty and staff, back and forth out of the community and onto the campus, I think you can see how we're really sort of there's a kind of a space and a barrier there, as opposed to student to student. Right, it's coming at it from more than one angle as opposed to just one. Yeah. Understood. Great.
I'd just like to say that I really appreciate y'all, coming to the village with this. Randy, Oceana, Laura, Aaron, Brian. I mean, this is if anybody can succeed at doing this, it's going to be a small school like yourselves, and with some good minds behind it. So I wish you well, and I'm not worried about the impact, locally here. I do have concern about the broader, and with nothing to do with y'all, but Burlington. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I think if it can happen anywhere, it can happen in a state with less than 1%, infection. Even though you're bringing in students, you're doing the right thing with them. You don't have 30,000 of them. You've got 600, or what did you say? So I commend you for your efforts and also your just openness to our community. And I know you spoke last night, I think, to Bennington. Congrats and God bless, and hope for a good fall. My own daughter has already been told she's not going back to Smith this fall, so she'll be home. And I get that. That's a different situation. It's a bigger school and it's a different state with different issues. So thanks you all.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your being here and inviting us.
Are there further questions from trustees or anybody else that wants to make a comment on any of these points? Was there? I think I kind of got this from the presentation, but it sounds like there's a tiered approach. If there is infection on campus, then it doesn't immediately go to everybody goes home, but at some point it would, I would imagine.
Yeah, we're certainly prepared for the possibility. All our planning is to try to work against that and to try to contain as much as possible. But yes, we might have to make the really difficult decision we made this spring. I don't know if Randy or Natalie have more to add.
I wanted to share some heartening news. Norwich just onboarded one cohort, and they put all their cohort of students that they considered from the highest risk areas together to onboard. I'm not sure. I think this is already public information, but they said out of the 550 roughly that were onboarding from high-risk areas, they had 3 asymptomatic positive students. They were immediately able to isolate them. So that bodes well, I think, for us.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting statistic to me as well. It was 585 students, 3 positives, so 0.5%, which is interestingly lower than our prevalence rate in Vermont. And those were their students who were coming from the highest risk areas.
And does that, Randy, does the do the positive tests out of the clinic in Manchester cause you any concern as far as the testing that you're doing on campus, or are you thinking about that in any way in doing the asymptomatic testing?
For sure, John. That was we're all still waiting for answers on that because the tests. I've actually looked and talked to the manufacturers of the instrument they used. All those sorts of things. The tests really should have performed way better than that. So I'll be really interested to see what the CDC, who've been called in to kind of investigate that situation, come out with. Either they had bad reagents, the machine wasn't working, or it wasn't calibrated properly. I mean, something was really wrong there. But putting that aside, the testing that we're doing to onboard our students is PCR testing. So that's the sort of highest quality in terms of reliability for testing. There are some mathematical models which look at the kind of tests that they used in Manchester. In fact, one of the most sort of read articles currently is by David Paul-Thiel out of Yale, who has done mathematical models and looked at using precisely that kind of test, which is, again, much lower quality in terms of reliability than what we're starting off with in the term, and found that if you increase the frequency of that sort of testing under surveillance, that is testing throughout the term, that the frequency of the testing is a more powerful tool or indicator than the actual sensitivity of the test. So without getting too technical about it, that kind of test should be able to be used fairly reasonably in a circumstance like ours. But the test that we're starting with is a much higher quality test, and we're hoping to be able to continue testing using that kind of platform. Thank you. That sounds excellent. I mean, that just, it sounds like almost, like a model of how it should work, and it's actually a good opportunity to, prove that it will work well. But we'll see. We hope for the best here. So, if there's no further questions from the trustees, I don't want to keep everybody from their families here, and I know it's getting late. I appreciate your coming in on the back end of the meeting and not, right off the bat, but unfortunately we had double booked tonight, so I appreciate your time and the comments that you presented here, and we are really we hear you supporting the community, and we really support you and support the college as well in all your efforts. So thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you. Your words of support and kindness really mean a lot to us.
Yes.
And we want to come back anytime if you have questions. the lines of communication are totally open. So
Yeah, and maybe we'll see it in the classroom. I actually took a class in the spring that was offered, so it was
oh, great! What? I'm
great.
curious which one you took.
Such an awesome the participation in democracy. So it was, and you know, it was perfect for me, but as a lawyer. But I mean, you know, I think that kind of thing is really opening our minds and our you know, in these opportunities to include community in the amazing classes that are offered at Bennington. I mean, they're just exceptional. So. Cool.
Good to see you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
Good night.
So if the board and members would just stay for 1 second, are there any other items of business that we were not able to get to from the agenda, Lori, that you know? Mary, yep, go ahead.
Unmute. Don't forget, I need that, the USDA document.
So,
which you will let us know when we have it, or do we have it already?
You have it.
Okay.
how do we sign it?
I can print it out and put it on Lori's door. I sent it to everybody.
When did you send it?
A couple weeks ago, maybe. I'll resend it tonight.
Lori's just like going like, for God's sakes.
I know, you know. Yes, you have no idea how many times I say, for God's sake.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, Mary, send it to me too. I'll print it out. I'll put it on my door. And send it to them as well. And
Okay. I need, everybody's got to sign one page, and I really, really have to have it tomorrow, so I can put it in the mail before the end of the day. Is that possible?
Well, if you mail it to me now, I'll put it on my door now.
You got it.
Well, I guess if I remember to get up extra early, come by your house about 6.
I'll put a pen in the envelope.
Okay. Yeah. You know I'll need that. All right.
So this is not the same one that the other one that we signed. This is different.
This is different.
This is different.
Is this more water board stuff? This
is closing the loan so that they can sell the bond.
Yeah.
So what is the one that is scheduled for the end of the month?
That's this one. But this is the preliminary documents that they need.
Okay, that's what was confusing me, because I thought we were arranging for a document signing at the end of the month.
You're doing that too, but read all the stuff that came out. I'll resend it again.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
There will be a document on my door after tonight's meeting for all of you to sign, please, tomorrow.
Thank you, Lori.
Good.
Mark, is that possible for you?
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, I got kicked off. I just got back on. So I missed the last 5 minutes.
So we just have a USDA document that has to be signed on Lori's door tomorrow.
Yes, I can do that. What time will it be there? I want to be first this time.
It's gonna be there by 10 o'clock tonight.
And Matthew's already scheduled to be there at 6:15. So.
And I'm gonna do when I walk the dog at my 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right, just to get it done with. Mark, you missed a great group hug with the college. It was good.
Well, I'm signing off right now, and I'm going to go email.
Okay.
Bye.
Any other items? I think we got to everything on the agenda.
Yeah, just real quick, and I don't want to take any more time. The two things I had talked to Norm about, North Shaft Lions are going to fix some things at the Lions Park. So they're going to fix the bleachers, they're going to paint the dugouts, and they wanted to paint the skate park structures, so just the blue exteriors to them. And they just might need to coordinate some with Norm in terms of materials and things like that, but I could talk to him about that. And the other was the approval, I think 2 meetings ago, for the stairs at McWaters Park. They just wanted to know, I Isaiah, who is designing them and building them. They just want to know if Norm can bring the pieces that he selects, which are at Norm's office there. They're going to go pick them out. They just want to know if Norm can bring them down and drop them off down at the park. So I'll touch base with him on that.
Okay.
I think that's a great reuse of those marble slabs.
Yeah, no, it should be great.
Absolutely. So
I've got a few on some of my properties, but I don't think that would work.
someone will slip on them, and then we're fucked. But yeah.
We're still on, Matt.
Oh, sorry.
No, we'll be fine. Okay.
Good night, Joe. And Lori, thank you, by the way,
Sure.
for the text you just sent, because
You're welcome, Matt.
that's great. Yeah.
Sure thing.
Good around.
Thank
But
you.
that's one of the things I can bring up with him is that they can texture them. So I know with the marble they can actually put a little texture on them.
Well, that'd be good.
Yeah, I'll mention that to him.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your hanging in there tonight. The cell phone things are a challenge, but I think that you made a good decision tonight. A thoughtful decision about, let's pump the brakes here.
What the hell? Yeah.
There's no reason they can't come back, a year or two and see where we're at then. But I mean, we were promised a lot by AT&T in terms of coverage, so let's see where that goes.
And to be honest, it's not our concern that it will cost them more money
Exactly.
to co-locate
Exactly.
as opposed to put something in. So that's on them.
But if they, if they think that, they didn't get a fair shake or it wasn't fully, they weren't able to respond to, they're welcome to come back or submit a letter or whatever. So I think we handled it fairly. Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll consider this in adjournment.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. See y'all later.
See ya. Bye.